All right. So, welcome to the session on integrative and sustainable manufacturing. My name is Minna Lanz, and I will be leading through this session. And I will introduce you to speakers in a short moment. Perhaps I could see the slides now. Wonderful. Now we can start. So this is the session you are attending. So welcome. I'm happy to have you here. I will start with a brief overview. As you all know that we are dealing on the industrial revolutions, the number 4 at the hand. These industrial revolutions are sort of a driving force, pushing us forward in the field of technical development. The Industrial Revolution number 4 has brought us quite a lot of new technologies, communication, connectivity, interfaces, protocols. We have come up with the new sensor fusion technologies for the data collection, also with the platforms for data sharing. Out of that, we have also achieved to get some new regulations on how we should share the data. And finally, this 4th industrial revolution is starting to look towards the human centricity. And thus, the topic of this session will be on what different aspects are on the integrative sustainable manufacturing. The session is divided into 3 sections. The first, we will have wonderful speakers giving the outlook from their own respective fields. On the second section, there will be a panel discussion. And in this panel discussion, we have some questions and poll for the audience. And finally, the section 3 will be a question and answer session so that the audience can ask questions from our respected speakers. So, we will start now the pitches, and these are the speakers who will be giving their overview in this session. So first we will start with Jose Cotta, the head of unit in Industry 4.5 from the DG for Research and Innovation. I will keep the introductions short, so allowing time for the content. Thank you. Please, Jose.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me, all of you? Yes? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because I have no feedback on my headphones of what I'm saying, so I'm taking them off. First of all, I'm very glad to be in this very good company, and probably to make a pitch that is a bit provocative, if I can put it this way, with regard to the introduction of Minna. In fact, I'm going to talk to you about Industry 5.0, and you will tell me, but what in hell is all this about? Because we are in the middle of a 4th industrial revolution. Certain companies, not to say the majority of them, are struggling in order not to be left out the 4th industrial revolution. How is the Commission talking to us about Industry 5.0? Well, first of all, we are not talking about a 5th industrial revolution. Let's be very clear. The industrial revolution is mainly provocated by the adoption and the usage of technology, in particular digitalization, and that is one of the biggest priorities of the Commission today, is a Europe fit for the digital age. So we are very strongly promoting the deployment and the adoption of a huge variety of technologies for connectivity, artificial intelligence, Data is the fuel of digitalization. And we think that we need to give it, we need to look at this technological uptake from a human perspective. And that's where we come in with our, I would say, future-looking concept, which is a human-centric, sustainable and resilient industry. And by industry, we use the traditional definition of industry, which is manufacturing, energy, and so on and so forth. So the idea is to say that in the future, and the future starts now or has started already, we need to go from a shareholder perspective based on growth and competitiveness to a stakeholder perspective, where we take as stakeholders not only the industrialists, but the industry workers and the customers at the end of the day. So this requires, of course, a certain number of research, in particular as far as the behaviors of the different stakeholders are concerned and how this will impact. And I think that in our debate we will come back to this more in detail. The other basic pillar for us is sustainability. As you know, the Green Deal is the other big priority of the European Commission, and industry needs to fit in a scenario that is a transformed one with regards to the one that existed in the last years. And I think that this is possible. This is not only, I would say, a political obligation, but it will be a reality, in particular when we look at the human-centric approach. And the third aspect of our concept of Industry 5.0 is precisely resilience. And resilience is an observation that we have made, in particular during the confinement and the first wave of the COVID-19 disease. This gave us a lot of food for thought, in particular because industry has reacted in a particular way and has demonstrated a certain resilience. But we need to boost this, and we need to boost this because this COVID-19 will not be the last crisis that Europe is living. We will have others, and of what nature we don't know, but we need to be equipped in order to face them. And this is mainly what we try, and of course this requires research, this requires innovation, and we are taking this into account into the building. As you know, we are currently in the phase of designing the future framework program, Horizon Europe. We have a number of contacts. We had recently the Research and Innovation Days that gave us a lot of inputs for the programming of Horizon Europe. We have a number of meetings taking place in the trilogue, as we say, with the Council and the Parliament. For the time being, we are still discussing the budget for Horizon Europe and the repartition of the budget between the different pillars and inside Pillar 2, which is the one that concerns us more closely, the division of this budget by the different clusters. And but I think this is work in progress that will be finished very soon, and we will be able to start Horizon Europe as scheduled from 2021. So this is the pitch that I would like to make, is a mixture between a technological approach, which is the approach of Industry 4.0, and looking at it through a perspective that we decided to call it in a provocative way Industry 5.0, because this is the human-centric, sustainable and resilient perspective on Industry 4.0. Thank you very much for having given me the opportunity to explain this concept, and I'm really looking forward for our discussion later in the session. And now I'm going to put my helmet back again because the sound of you comes through here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jose. Next, we will go to the second speaker, who is Ricardo Bueno, Director of Basque Research and Technology Alliance, and also the Vice Chair of MANUFUTURE High-Level Group. So please, Ricardo, give us your update on the field.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Minna, for this introduction. So I will make some statements about the relevance of manufacturing technologies for a green, for a resilient, for a digital Europe, and the need to support these technologies. We believe at MANUFUTURE in our community at the end that manufacturing technologies are vital for our recovery and for our future. In the short term, we see that manufacturing provides good jobs, high-value jobs. It contributes to strong regional ecosystems, stronger societies at the end, with more solidarity, as we heard at the plenary, with less inequalities. And we see that on the longer term also we can make a strong contribution to improved productivity, better, more competitive industries from manufacturing. We go through these elements. For instance, the green transition, we see that we can produce at the right time with manufacturing technologies. We can reduce waste through proper design, manufacturing, recycling. We can extend life of products, so through maintenance, through services, through manufacturing. So at the end, manufacturing technologies can make a lot also for this green transition. If we talk about resilience, there as well, technological excellence can give a lot to a more resilient society. In our case, we can have quicker reaction times when we need some specific products, as we saw in the in the current pandemics. We can reduce dependencies from external sources. We can adapt ourselves, our factories, the products we make through reconfiguration. We can also have much safer factories and environments. So at the end, all this can be made by having some leadership in production technologies, and this is somewhere where some aspect where Europe also excels at the global scale. Very relevant as well if we go to the digital transition, and here specifically we should address how we bring this to manufacturing SMEs. At the end, if we want the SMEs to interoperate with their value chains, if we want to access new customers, new markets, I think we have a lot to do regarding digital skills and having people better trained, more resilient at the end, and more versatile. And also, we believe that if we master these digital technologies, we will be more able to keep manufacturing in Europe. So this is also a relevant aspect for manufacturing technologies. And at the end, my statement is that we need to support all this, both for the short-term impact and also for the future strategy. In these tough COVID times, We see that where manufacturing is strong in those regions, societies have been more resilient. Economic decay has been less important, so we need to keep this industry here, this manufacturing industry here. If we want to keep it, we need to make it strong, and the way to make it strong is through manufacturing technologies, to make it competitive. So at the end, what we would like, and this is my main statement, is to make a statement about the need to support manufacturing technologies development and adoption through the European industry. So this is my last slide. I would like to highlight the type of technologies we would like to support and to be very clearly reflected at the recovery plans at the European level, at national level, at regional level. So at the end, because we firmly believe that this is having an impact at our industry competitiveness at the end at our societies. No? So we need to support design, engineering, creativity to have more sustainable products. We need also to support technologies for more flexible, adaptive, resilient factories through Europe. Of course, we have to address technologies for the circular economy, addressing end-to-end life cycle, manufacturing, engineering, remanufacturing, and so on. We need to work also for having more sustainable, cleaner energy sources and energy systems in our industry. Digitization is also a key element, and especially for our SMEs, as I mentioned. All this needs infrastructure, needs advanced technology centers, it needs contribution from RTOs, from universities, so we work together for the benefit of our industry. And not forgetting learning, lifelong learning, increasing skills, increasing capabilities. All this we can do it through some European platform for manufacturing knowledge, and this is also where MANUFUTURE comes in. So at the end, I think we have to make this collective effort. We need to support all this, and at the end, my statement is that manufacturing technologies at the end have a strong impact not only at our industry, but at the end in a more balanced European society. And this is my statement for today. Thank you.
Many thanks, Ricardo. Then we'll move to the industrial perspective offered by Patrick Wegehat from Volkswagen. Please.
Hello, good morning. I hope everybody can hear me all right. And I try to catch up a little bit of time as I will skip a slide, which hopefully works. All right, I'm from Volkswagen, and as you might have heard, there is quite some change in our industry. As I listen to the European part here, it's probably known that we have changed emission goals for 2020, 2030, and so on. And it became clear very soon that we will not meet these new requirements with internal combustion engines. And as you also know, there are some very progressive colleagues of ours in the industry, like Tesla, already offering very competitive products in terms of electric mobility and competitive cost. So what is our actual answer to that? You might have heard that we have the introduction of the new product line ID, ID3, ID4, which is the current idea of how we answer the challenge of electric vehicles. But, and it's a big but, I would like to share a process idea. We need to follow together here in Europe, and we have to discuss how we can speed up to catch up with Tesla. Because, as you may see here, we have the traditional way of proceeding in designing and assembling cars. So actually, as everybody knows, we have a product design process in a company, which starts with a product that actually breaks down into parts and pieces. Then you start looking at the table of content or the bill of material, And then you see, okay, I have to establish a manufacturing process, and this manufacturing process might be complex or not. And you decide what to do yourself or to buy from a supplier. Once settled this out, then you go and say, okay, I have to invest, and then I have to buy the equipment, which actually takes quite a lot of time, which is also quite, let's say, discussion intensive among different departments in a company, and then you eventually are not very flexible and innovative when it comes to the equipment. Once you found a supplier, then you integrate it in your plans and hope you run it over 7 years of the product life cycle. That is the conventional way, and I was asked to comment on the contribution of Industry 4.0, and I learned it's 5.0 already. I stick with 4.0, and it says, all right, there are some pockets of innovation where you can apply. That's why I have to skip. Where you can apply the different technologies of. Sorry, I have to skip. Yeah, let's say the technologies of artificial intelligence and some new things that are provided by digitization. But as a matter of fact, that is just usually a pocket of technology progress, like RFID, as you see, some data-driven data mining and some predictive pattern recognizing solutions. But the actual idea is that it's not solving problems you find in a complex world, and then everything, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and we say, okay, complexity can always be handled by complex pattern recognition. But the actual idea, and that's the next slide, and I just skipped to that, will be that, as you can see, we as a manufacturer manufactured like 80 years of a conventional car that consisted of a unibody, which was the steel shell. Then you put all the things in there, the wheels, the interior, and the powertrain, and it was like a clear departmentalization from body shop to paint shop to assembly. But what we noticed is that we just transferred this concept into the current cars that are now in the market, ID3 and ID4, which are very competitive cars, but still old school. But we noticed that if we want to be more competitive, and that means successful with our business model in the future, shifting from just the hardware to the software, we noticed that we have to reinvent the actual product architecture, and thus the architecture has to be derived from an upstream, actually the upstream integration of manufacturing ideas into the product design, which also says that we not only have to downstream assemble things people thought of in the laboratory, but really see what's on the shop floor, what's out there with the customers, what are the real case uses, and also what is the new changing environment of our customers that may help us understand that it's not that we produce a product or manufacture a product, finish it at the end of the line, and then it's done for all time of its life cycle. But things emerge at the customer's side. So the customer doesn't always want a finished product or an inflexible product, but maybe they can live with a simple and a standardized, easy product that comes from the factory, and then differentiate their individual needs and different variants during life cycle and outside the factory. So my final plea is join us in rethinking all the processes, all the products that are surrounding mobility of the future. We of course do have some ideas, some answers, but we need a close link to the customers, which is actually all of Europe. And my final idea. Just to let you know, as we speak, Tesla cracked the code of full autonomous driving. They have the latest version of their autopilot, and we are not aware that anybody in Europe has something like that. So my plea is to catch up, get into discussion, conversation, and yes, have a good life then. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Then next, we will hear a short pitch, hopefully 5 minutes, from Christoph Lux, Policy Director on Orgalim. So please go ahead.
Yes, good, thank you. So first of all, also thanks on my side for the organizers to have Orgalim here. Maybe, first of all, just to kind of put things in perspective with regards to manufacturing transition, but where Orgalim is coming from, maybe you also need to know a little bit who we represent, right? So we are a federation, basically, which means we represent 48 other associations. These can be national associations, but also sectoral associations. And they actually, so we represent those three big sectors that you see here. So these sectors we call Europe's technology industries are suppliers to, of course, a wide range of other sectors. So I'm very happy to speak after our Volkswagen colleague because, of course, the automotive sector is a very big part of, let's say, our customer base. Now, to just put it in perspective, it's 11.5 million direct jobs, and it's 1/3 of the EU's annual export that these sectors represent. So it's a very significant part of the industrial base. Now, I don't think you can do a presentation these days, right, without talking about, what's the situation that we're currently in. And when you say manufacturing in transition, when you look at the crisis, of course, that is hitting us, it is also hitting our industries. So these are figures from a couple of weeks ago. In a month, we will present our kind of more annual report. And it looks like when you look at the recovery, for our sectors, it's going to take probably until the end of next year or even 2022 to be at the levels of 2019. So this is really important to know because this is the background against which we are making that transition within the manufacturing sector. Now, this slide, I think, summarizes a bit what you've already heard from the previous speakers. This is basically according to us and the view that we have on what are the big challenges and what are the big kind of objectives that we have to focus on? So you heard already Jose talk about digital. You heard him talk about green. Also the point about resilience, of course, came up. And so we totally agree that when you look at manufacturing, these are going to be the key areas to focus on. Now, very quickly, on digital, also you've heard from, of course, Patrick about some of what this means for automotive. But in general, what I would like to state is we are actually very strong in a lot of parts when you talk about digital transformation. When you look at industrial AI, I think Europe and some of our big, but also a lot of our SMEs are in the leading position when it comes to industrial AI. So I think it's important to start with the positive, right? Because sometimes that seems a bit forgotten. But to acknowledge, we need to, of course, become even stronger, right? We need to further secure our position at the global level. But they also need to distribute this digital transformation across a wider part of the manufacturing sector. And there are some challenges around that, and hopefully we can come back to that in the discussion. When you look at infrastructure, 5G deployment, when you look about something fundamental like skills, that's still a big part where I have to work on in Europe. Data sharing, it has come up a couple of times already, but how do you share data? A lot of the legal questions around it. The investment part, and that's where the previous slide on the situation that we're in is very challenging. To get public investment and especially now private investment during this transition has become even more difficult than before the crisis hit. So this is something we have to think about. And of course, all of this links to the discussion about innovation and what's the innovation agenda that we need to have moving forward. Very briefly on green, the climate neutrality goal of 2050 that the European Commission said we fully support. Now we're on the road to 2030, where there are some ambitious goals with regards to greenhouse gas emissions reductions. The way that we look at Europe's technology industries is twofold. We have to do our bit, right? When we look at our products, when we look at energy efficiency of our products and the production processes. But our sectors are a very small part of the issue that is there. So I think the other angle that we're looking at is how can our industries help with other sectors like automotive to make that transition. So that is an interesting thing to talk about maybe a bit later. Resilience, I'll park that for the moment. There's different definitions that people have on that. So maybe also later we can talk a bit about what resilience means to us and what some of the challenges are. Given the time, I just want to maybe, this is kind of self-evident, right? This was a slide from before the crisis. We still believe that manufacturing is really at the heart of Europe's renewal, especially at the stage that we are in this current situation. And so a year ago, or more than a year ago, we already had an industrial strategy vision, and these were the three strategic imperatives that we had put forward. I just want to call out the last one, because I think for today, this discussion is important, right? How do we actually transform our industries? And how do we make sure that we use manufacturing to address some of the societal challenges that are out there? That's, I think, the core of what we need to focus on. And of course, that all is being brought back now with the industrial strategy, right? The Commission proposed an industrial strategy earlier this year. So we were very happy that they did so, because this is what we've been asking for, to put this really high on the agenda. Now, there are a couple of things that we still have to focus on, right? There's so many elements of an industrial policy strategy. We really think advanced manufacturing needs to get even more attention in industrial policy. So, and this will translate also in the innovation agenda. So we need to be very focused on ensuring that we have that transversal view within industrial policy. And so there's a lot of aspects to that that probably will pop up in the discussion in a moment. Let me just finish, as I'm out of time, with this slide. So, of course, Commissioner Breton, he's talking about data, the importance of data for a lot of other applications, including when you focus on artificial intelligence. We fully support that. And I think a big focus of what we need to do now is to look at how are we going to use data? How can we take away some roadblocks to sharing? And how do we make sure that Europe remains an even stronger leader in that? So I'm just picking this one out because I think this is coming up all the time. And I think it sets a bit the scene, hopefully, for the discussion later on. But I'll leave it at that. So, Minna, I'll hand it back to you.
All right, many thanks. Then we'll go straight to the next speaker. So, Enrico Gallegati, Innovation Funding Manager from the SCM Group. So, please.
Thank you everybody for attending this this session. I will, well, unfortunately, unlike Volkswagen, I have to introduce my company. We are, do you see the slides? Okay. We are an industrial company making machinery, mostly the kind of machinery that are used to make furniture. So from the small artisan around the corner to IKEA. We are roughly 700 million turnover and little bit less than 4,000 people working. Of course, the presence is global, although the R&D and the engineering is still localized in Italy. I would like to give you account of a reflection that we did together with the partners of the ACE Factories Cluster, which is a cluster of 5 funded projects from the Horizon 2020 under the Factories of the Future PPP, where we had a collective reflection on how can the industrial operator evolve, the concept of the industrial operator evolve, thanks to the technologies that we have been speaking about. So here we are speaking about really our focus is on the human operator inside the factory. So through the experimentation of several different technologies that you find on the right-hand side of the table of the slide here, you can see 5 different kinds of archetypes of operator whose capabilities are augmented by Industry 4.0 technologies. This capability can be physical capabilities, like the super strong operator, someone that uses like exoskeletons to improve their capability to lift, for instance, weight, or it can be the mental capabilities, which are as important as the physical capabilities in a Factory 4.0, such as the augmented and virtual operator, or the social and collaborative operator that uses industrial social networking to share process knowledge with co-workers. And we know how important it is right now for industrial companies to capture the tacit knowledge that is embedded in the human operators and to make it this as an asset for the whole company. And then we have concepts such as the healthy and happy operator, which can somehow also become more productive thanks to a better feeling of well-being while working. And the one-of-a-kind operator, which is somehow the evolution of all this, and is an operator that is using equipment that is adapted to its unique physical and mental capabilities. So how did we try to instantiate this into the woodworking industry? Well, the woodworking industry, I would say it has some specific features. Specific features that are mostly related to the fact that on one hand, our customers still feel like craftsmen, like people that are delivering a unique product with a special flavor. And this is also true for very large customers like IKEA. A furniture is always a design product, something that stems from a sort of feeling of uniqueness. On the other hand, we have to deliver automation. We have to deliver highly efficient processes, predictable, fast, and productive. How can we combine this? This is the hurdle that a company that supplies automation in this sector is finding. So the temptation historically was to enrich machinery and automation systems with all the nice functions that one can imagine, computer vision, IoT, embedded quality control, whatever. Through history, through the latest years, we realized that we had enriched too much our machinery. And on one hand, there was the problem that the operators did not know how to benefit from them. And on the other hand, the operators were also starting to feel challenged. They had the feeling that their unique skill was going to be replaced by even richer machinery. And so they could not operate effectively with the machine. And this was an issue. How did we try to solve it? The inclusive project, which was part of this ACE cluster, for instance, found a way that was related to two potential solutions. One was the development of a human-machine interface, which was adaptable, which meaning that it has 3 user levels, and these levels can shift during operation thanks to the real-time connection with a wearable device that the operator is wearing and that can detect the stress level of operator, can, for instance, instruct the machine to pass from an advanced HMI to a basic HMI, maybe because the operator is feeling under stress. He's at the end of the shift. He needs more basic information. He needs less richness in the HMI. Another possibility is to have online training. So to deliver in a virtual environment, a training on how to operate the machine before the machine is available at the shop floor. And this, of course, reduces the ramp-up time of an automation system. How can we do that? And how can we ensure that this is adapted to everyone? For instance, by modulating the level of detail. We had some psychological studies that teach us that elderly operators tend to prefer very basic shapes and different colors. Then maybe a younger operator is more used and it can manage a more advanced and rich and detailed virtual training. So by modulating this according to the level of ease with technologies, we can oh, sorry, I didn't move to the next slide. Sorry. I think now you can see it. We could deliver this. So my final statement is these were examples on how automation suppliers can integrate existing Industry 4.0 technologies, but having always in mind the human operator that has to use them. So by conceptualizing this human operator, we can make sure that what we implement is both innovative and actually used by our customers. Thank you.
All right, many thanks, Enrico. And finally, we have Željko Pasin from the European Factories of the Future Resource Association, known as the EFRA. So please, Željko, for the last 5 minutes, and then we'll go to the panel discussion. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Minna. So my name is Željko Pasin. I work for EFRA, that's the European Association, which brings together the manufacturing community, especially the manufacturing research community. And this community, as Ricardo already said, since many, many years, we meet in the framework of the MANUFUTURE technology platform. But then we created a legal entity, especially to be the partner of the European institutions for the Factories of the Future public-private partnership. And you saw already Enrico just speaking, presenting a project which was part of this Factories of the Future partnership. We are now in preparation for Horizon Europe, as you know, and part of Horizon Europe there will be a manufacturing partnership, and its name will be Made in Europe. So that's the continuation of the Factories of the Future PPP. And basically EFRA was working a lot in the past years on preparing the ground for this next partnership in manufacturing, which will be part of Horizon 2020, Horizon Europe, sorry, it comes from 2020. So I need to now get here the logistics done, okay. So what we were doing the last years was to talk to industry experts, to make public consultations, and try to understand what are the challenges of EU manufacturing. There's quite a big delay here, so I don't know when the next slide will appear. I hope soon. So as I said, we did interviews with companies. We organized 2 public consultations asking what are your concerns. And in fact, much of this was already mentioned here today in this session, in the plenary session, that there are a lot of challenges, also opportunities, but challenges for EU manufacturing at the moment. And this depends also what is happening in other parts of the world, looking at Asia, at America, the competition, the fierce competition coming from there, the governments which are supporting these industries in other parts of the world. But then also, if you look at customer preference, at EU legislation, I mean, electric vehicle was already mentioned. So of course, all this will have a huge knock-on effect on value chain and the whole industry, which needs to reorganize itself for the automotive industry, but also for other industries. And luckily, we are in this moment of time where all these new technologies are there. They're affordable. I mean, sensors, robots, all this existed since many decades, but now they're affordable. Every SMEs can buy digital tools, can engage in robotics, automation. So there's this whole technology revolution going on, which offers huge opportunities for companies. Of course, this means also that the people need to be skilled. It has also other side effects if we want to embrace all these new technologies. But it's a blessing that they are there, and we are all now working on integrating these technologies in the manufacturing process. We created this vision for EU manufacturing, which goes in line with the European policy objectives relating digitization, related to the Green Deal. And of course, we all want to, COVID showed this, we need to get more resilient as a continent, as industry. A single company, maybe except of Volkswagen, cannot do it alone. So what's very important is to work in these manufacturing ecosystems, to work in alliances, and this is more than ever important. And we put it here as some quotes. That's where European industry is heading to, or wants to head to get more resilient. COVID was only one example, which was a shock, an external shock that needs to be absorbed. But there will be other such challenges ahead of us. So the name of the game is resilience, sovereignty, as was said before, and also environmental sustainability. And here it's not only the manufacturing process that needs to look at, but also the products that we are producing, that they also comply with circularity criteria. So what we did is we presented a program to member states and to the European Commission, these challenges that I described before, to tackle these in the next 7 years as part of Horizon Europe. And this partnership will be based on 4 pillars. The first pillar is all about competitiveness and value chains, and getting focus on competitiveness. The second pillar looks at circular products and climate neutral manufacturing, and the third pillar looks at new integrated business, product, service, and production approaches, also new use models. So here we look at how the machines and the products go hand in hand, because if you produce another product like an electric vehicle, the factory environment, the machines that you use, of course, this also needs to be changed. And then we have this 4th pillar, which was around human-centered, and Enrico gave a very good overview of what are the challenges in terms of human-driven innovation, skills enhancement, etc. So in this next slide, you see a kind of the whole overview of this program that we are suggesting, and based on these 4 pillars, or based on the 4 specific objectives, and we have these enablers and technologies available to achieve these goals as described in the vision. And so you can check this on the EFRA website, on the European Commission website. As I said, hopefully call topics will be published early next year, and then it's the normal process of building consortia and engaging into projects and cooperating with other organizations, and of course we need to look at companies, research institute, universities. We need to create this network of all these important players who can help us overcome these challenges. Here's just an example of the specific objective 1. I will not go too much into detail. You can, it's a long document, and all this is being at the moment negotiated with the member states and the European Commission. And so based on the success of the Factories of the Future PPP, all these organizations, institutes, companies, they worked so hard in the past years in projects, and we see these outcomes entering the business and the companies. So it's very good to see that this cooperation at European level works. And my last message is we need strong regional initiative, we need strong national initiatives, and we need also a European place to cooperate, to bring these things together. So it's really not either or. We need such manufacturing initiatives and Industrie 4.0 initiatives, whatever you want to call them, but it needs to be around manufacturing. And as said, it needs to be at regional level, at national level, and at European level. So I will stop here, Minna, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you very much.
Selko. Since we were cut in the beginning by 15 minutes, so I'm trying to share my slides now, if I can still share them. And yes, please, I have the questions there. I prepared 5 questions, but for the sake of time, I think we have already discussed on the first question, which was the challenges coming from the next 10 years, and particularly the speech from the Volkswagen highlighted very concrete targets for the next decade. So I think we can go to the question number 2. So I will start with the positive aspect before moving to the very detailed COVID-related questions. So this is the question number 2, which I would like to discuss with the panel members. Hopefully you can answer with the very short answers and bringing different aspects, not all, but some. So the question would be that how can future manufacturing positively influence the daily life of the EU citizens? What makes us good and valuable? Who would like to start for answering this question? It has to be positive. Yes, Christoph, please.
Yeah, just very briefly, what I said kind of in my presentation, which is, when you talk about transform, the role of manufacturing transform society, I think if you look at then the Green Deal, for example, or the climate objectives, I think the challenges are huge, right? And the Volkswagen example is one of the where whole parts of industry we need to transform. So I think manufacturing and if I look at our members, right, the technology industries, what they should do is how can we help the automotive sector and others in their transition? And of course, in the end, that will help the citizen, right? Because with doing that, we help towards a more sustainable path. And electric vehicles is one example. The broader energy infrastructure transition is another example. And so how manufacturing can help those transitions happen. In the end, the goal is, of course, to have a societal impact and support that. So I think that's just one example of how we look at the societal challenges and how we can help and manufacturing can help solve some of those big problems.
All right, thank you.
Can I also add something, Minna?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, I think it's a very interesting question, and I think it can be answered in several ways. I mean, to be honest, my first reaction would be the most positive contribution of manufacturing to European society is that the parents of these beautiful kids we have a job. So I fully agree that having a good feeling if you buy a more greener product as compared to the previous version is a nice feeling, and it's important. But I think this job aspect is really important. We need, if you look at the numbers of manufacturing and how much services are related to this manufacturing and how many families just work well because of all these jobs, I think we should keep this always in mind. Beside all these other aspects of just having a pleasant life, all these products that we are able to buy, luckily. And hopefully they will get ever and ever greener. But this aspect of job creation, I think it's really important.
All right.
Can I add something also?
Yes,
I want to reinforce what Željko said. I would not separate the concept of citizen from the concept of worker. So first of all, manufacturing can give this contribution, and then also if you think of, for instance, what I was presenting, an automation system, the way an automation system is being designed right now is completely different than 10 years ago. 10 or 15 years ago, the user was an object. Now the user is a subject. Because we realize that, for instance, for a machinery, a key purchasing factor is no longer the productivity of the machine. This is to be taken for granted, but it's his usability, is the pleasantness and the ease of use of the operator. So I think that manufacturing is taking part in this little revolution that is happening in many domains of the economic life. That is the keeping the human as someone that is at the center of the preoccupation of the product designers. So, of course, this is in a way something that improves the life of citizens, especially when they use automation systems.
Okay, thank you. Yes, you can comment, please.
Yes, just a very small comment, because I think that everything is connected. And it's, of course, very clear that manufacturing and industry in general has a lot of impact on the jobs, on the creation of jobs, on the fulfillment of these jobs by the citizens. Now, the sustainability, for me, is not only environmental sustainability, is also sustainability of the economy, sustainability of the institutions, sustainability of the society as such. So for me, we cannot and we should not distinguish between job creation and sustainability. It's probably a bad direction to create jobs that have no future. See what I mean? And this can be in terms of not only of energy, but in terms of resources in general. And I'm thinking about raw materials and things like this. I think that in the future, when jobs are created, they need to be sustainable by design almost, or by construction, or by wish, or by philosophy, call it whatever you want. But those things need to be together. The other thing that I would like to say is that, of course, the manufacturing has a very positive influence on the daily life of the EU citizens. But the daily life of the EU citizens and the evolution of society also impacts the manufacturing processes. And Enrico just mentioned one very important aspect of it. Creating well-being in the shop floor is a target today, as it is for to integrate societal values like sustainability, environmental sustainability, in the corporate cultures. There are a number of studies that demonstrate that this attracts young talent to work in this type of companies. So I think that the question has in fact two answers. Either you put yourself on the manufacturing and you influence the society, or you put yourself on the society and you influence the manufacturing processes. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, so thanks. I will go to the question number 3. I was supposed to have a poll here, but we are running out of time. But may I see my slide set for the question number 3? I think we should address some of those topics still. The question is that question number 3. Okay, so which are the main challenges in the digital transformation process due to the COVID situation? How the priorities changed, or have they? The timetable, has it changed? What is the most critical at the moment in order to become more integrative, sustainable, resilient manufacturing society? And how the COVID has changed that? Then we'll go to the audience questions.
Okay.
Sorry? Yes. Okay, great. So, comments on this? Okay,
I think that all this COVID has changed radically many value chains. They are shorter, even we have seen breaking of value chains. So I think it will be very much needed a true integration of our SMEs in those larger value chains, in connected to leading industries. So I think this digital aspect of bringing digitalization to SMEs to be easily integrated in these value chains, this is one of the most relevant aspects. The second one can be more related to jobs directly. We've seen there is a loss of jobs, very strong in some countries. And there I think that if we manage to provide digital skills and competencies to so many people, it will be much easier to integrate them in our industry. So I think this is also very, very relevant. So I would put the accent on the SMEs and their integration and the reskilling of people so they can have a job, a digital-related job in manufacturing.
All right, thanks, Ricardo. Any other comments? What do you think? Yes, Selko.
So, I mean, I fully agree that it accelerated this need and the readiness to engage in digital technologies. I think many companies are now happy that they did these investments in the past years. I know company managers or factory managers, who can basically do everything from their smart home from home to control the manufacturing process. So I think these guys are very happy that they did these investments, and I think those companies who had to stand still over the past month, they really used this time to, as Ricardo says, either invest in skilled personnel or try out new digital platforms or try out new technologies. If their orders were down, the managers made sure that the people still have something to do. And I know that companies who didn't, where the production line was still, that they experimented and used the time to include these digital technologies. So I fully think it accelerated the whole process, but it made also challenges visible. I mean, I have this feeling that we are coping all well with this digital world, all these phone calls and phoning each other, and also at factory level using these digital tools. But just as an example, to employ new people, for example, it's a big game changer what's going on at the moment. If you want to engage somebody and you don't have this possibility to meet, to get a feeling, does this person fit well in my team and in our company? All this changed, and it made some challenges visible. This situation that these digital tools do have limits, and that we are not yet used to only work digitally, especially with developing trust. I mean, a company which sells needs to develop trust to its customers. And certainly it was easier in the old days when you met at conferences, you went for a business lunch, and now this needs to be done digitally. It shows also a bit the limits of these wonderful technologies which we luckily have.
Thanks, Selko. Other comments on this?
Yeah, maybe just very briefly from my side. One, like our industries, what they've focused on the last couple of months is really survival, right? It is to get through this time. And so a lot of the national measures have actually been very helpful. The second step is then the question about the digital transformation. I think we will have to accelerate it. I am not saying it has accelerated because of COVID, but we will have to. Once we pass the stage of survival, it's kind of about how do we get the next level of investment going. And that's where the biggest challenge, this is one of your questions, right? What do we think the biggest challenge is currently is that investment part. If you look at the private investment, there is a lot of difficulties for the moment in getting that going. And so if you haven't made a lot of those investments in the past, you're increasingly going to have difficulties now to do that now. So I think a big discussion with policymakers continues to be how can we kind of restart that investment cycle also. The public side of investment, I think what has happened at European level is enormous, and we shouldn't forget that, right? The Next Generation EU package, the amount of money that's been put forward now on the table, the implementation will be crucial. How are member states going to present their plans? How are they going to really also channel the money to really focus on the digital and the green challenges? We know the Commission has provided some guidance on the percentages of the investments needed there. We really welcome that. But we'll need to see where it goes. So the money is there. Let's try to get it out now, and let's try to get it focused really on there where the need is high.
Thank you. I will make a little jump to the questions from the audience at this time. So there was a question comment about the technology transfer aspect to the industry. So what was missed in the discussion so far is the very important aspect of technology transfer to industry, not to just novel innovative approaches, but also existing valuable approaches and modern, efficient and resource-saving technologies. So comments on this particular aspect, technology transfer.
Well, I don't completely agree that it was not present, because actually the projects that I was presenting were related to technology transfer. When you have to develop something which is really somehow forward-thinking compared to what a manufacturing company is doing, you need an input from university. You need someone that is thinking out of the box. And of course, you need also someone that is capable of speaking your own language. So I would say that technology transfer is an old story. It's not difficult. It's not easy. It's a matter of having two worlds speaking together. Personally, I think that there's a lot related to human communication and human empathy between researchers and industrialists rather than abstract methodology. I mean, this is my practice in 15 years. So, yeah, this is my contribution.
Thanks. One comment. Yes, Jose, please.
I just wanted to stress that the technology transfer is fundamental for me. There are, in fact, for me, two different aspects that are at the basis of the creation of Europe as such. One is infrastructure. Today, not all the regions in Europe are equipped in the same way in order to face connectivity issues, for example. We all know that in certain parts of Europe, connectivity is still an issue. And the other is technology transfer. And I totally agree with Enrico. I mean, technology transfer from universities to industry. This is a very important issue, but there is also technology transfers within the industrial sectors between big companies and SMEs, sometimes the other way around with startups that influence a whole sector of activity. So I think that this is a very important issue, and we are putting in place a strategy for exploitation of the results of the projects that we finance in Horizon 2020 and afterwards in Horizon Europe. And this is an issue that we are taking very, very seriously.
Thank you. All right, two short comments.
One short comment, please.
Yes.
I would just like to add, it's also the transfer among industries, such as software industry to the hardware. So what we are currently experiencing is that we actually thought our product was physical and everything we added as an experience, driver experience and so forth. But now we notice that it's more software. It's a gadget on wheels. So we have to shift our competencies towards software coding and software integration into the products. So that might wonder sometimes, but this is also technology transfer in terms of, things you never imagined before, because it had something like a different level of development, and like the transfer between big and small to big, and university to and back and forth. But now it's mere question of competition, and being in the future market. And as I said before, Europe has to look over the ocean to the US, to Silicon Valley, see what they can do, and adapt it to our cultural background, because we have some more cultural, let's say, heritage or a more profound way of thinking about things. And my appeal is to copy with pride in terms of transfer of technology. Thank you.
And Ricardo had.
Yes, just a short statement about technology transfer. I would say this is our business. I'm here as CEO of BRTA. It's an alliance of more than 3,000 people working in technology and technology transfer. So I think in Europe in general, what we see is that technology transfer works well for manufacturing technologies and for industry. I mean, we have strong universities working in manufacturing processes and many other areas of research. We have European industry that excels in manufacturing, and this is because transfer is working well. And in between, very often, also developing technologies and supporting the transfer, we have many RTOs, research and technology organizations, such as our own organizations or many other at EARTO. And I think this type of organizations are very much supportive in this technology transfer and making it happen and developing a positive impact in our industry.
Thanks. May I have the question number 4? We still have time. There was one poll about importance on the workplace, skills, enterprise culture, business innovation. And I had a poll for audience. One moment, I will read that the poll was for who needs to be educated in future to take up these new emerging digital technologies. This is part to the digital transformation and part to the technology transfer in the means of education. So if we could see the poll results now and keep them visible. And then I will at the same time take the comment from the one from the audience. So now we can see a little bit different charts. So you can observe them for a moment. And then we have a comment from Lithuania, Gintaras Vilda. He commented on the first paragraph that the change in vocational education and higher education system is already too slow and unpredictable with the technological change. And he proposed the solution should be accelerated with the new teaching methods, training factories, hybrid laboratories. So, who should go into these new training systems? Who should we educate? Traditionally, it has been the factory floor personnel. But is it enough? Yes, Patrick, please.
We all have to join the ride. I mean, it's not them or us. It's all together, I think. We have to rethink. We experienced this here with new ways of working in agile offices and abandoning management offices and working on in the same rooms here in a factory building. And it's learning from one another, because I think that now that especially in the product development and the software development, we are learning from software engineers currently. And I can only appeal that join everybody and not think that the professors they will provide us with the knowledge and then we go to the university. But just be curious. Just use YouTube. If you have a question, you can find any question and any answer combined with a 30-minute slot video, and you're smarter. Then you join it over a coffee, and so this is how we can solve it, I think.
Okay, other comments. I hope that we can still see the poll results visible so that you can comment upon those. So let's keep these visible. And now other comments from the panel members. I think we have a couple minutes left still.
Yeah, sure. I mean, from my side, it's all of the above, right? So like Patrick was saying, it's almost everybody. Now, where the most crucial ones are, I think where it's definitely more direct, it's definitely the factory floor, right? You will have to sometimes do a lot of reskilling and retraining. But if you look at the longer term, it's basically everybody. And not just the people that are currently there, but let's also look at the people that are coming into the workforce, right? And that's the other big challenge. And that's not new, right? So how do you adapt the education systems across Europe with different approaches so that those people that are coming into the workforce have those skills? Of course, the young people these days have different skills than the people who are currently in the workforce. I think that's, of course, the big asset. But it will be a big effort from, let's say, the young people up to the people that are currently here. So all of the above.
All right. Thank you. Other comments?
If I have to comment the results, I would not agree that the young engineers should not be re-educated. They need a lot of re-education when they come when they join an industrial environment, because what we observe is that the young that come, of course, they are somehow full of ideas, but they don't know how to put them down to earth. So they need a training in soft skills to communicate with the rest of the company. I think this is key. Education should be horizontal, and it's not just teaching the old to use the new technologies, but also teaching the young interacting with the old, because it's not just with digital technologies that we stay competitive. It's combining digital technologies with the hardware knowledge of existing companies.
Thank you, Enrico. This was a good point. So the education has to be different, and there are soft skills aside with the digital tools and technologies. Yes.
Minna, if I can add, I think the challenges are different at different levels in terms of reskilling. I think at management level, it's more changing the perspective, realizing how markets are changing, who are the new kind of competitors, new alliances to do with, to buy new companies, to invest into buying new skills or new companies. So I think that the challenges are different depending on which level you are, whether you're on the factory floor or on the management level.
We are now running out of time, but thanks, Helga, for this. I will still ask one question from the audience. So there was the question that do the companies acknowledge and recognize the need for change, and do they look solutions for the transition, or are they still tied up on the familiar grounds? So was this COVID push enough to change the attitude? What do you think? Very shortly, please, comments, final comments. Yes, do you think that the companies acknowledge the change now?
I think they have to. I mean, if not, they will die. So either you are successful with your strategy and then you can continue with this strategy, or you realize what needs to be changed and then you change. And if not, I mean, in business, it's the figures that show. If even in big companies, you know, one section does a loss, the other sections will not say we will subsidize you for forever, maybe for a short time. So in the end, the figures matter in business, and change will happen one way or the other. And those who already found the right strategy, they are exploiting it and they are on the right track, and they will continue innovating.
Thanks.
I think that especially large companies, they acknowledge the need to change, but they disagree inside on how to change. It's like a couple that they disagree, that they don't like pink walls, but the man wants them red and the woman wants that white. So it's easy to agree that you have to change, but then to agree on a strategy is another story.
That's true. Thanks. The final comments still.
Yes, it's a wake-up call. Will everybody follow that wake-up call? Probably not, and that goes to survival or not. But even those that want to sometimes have difficulties going there because of what I said earlier about the situation we're in. So we'll have to see how it evolves.
All right. I think we are coming to an end of our session. So many thanks for your presentations, opinions, answers to the various questions, and also for the audience. Thank you for the questions. We didn't have time to go all of these questions, but some we hope, or I hope that we addressed up to a certain degree. So this is the end of the session, and thank you for the panelists, audience, and the organizers.